Yeah, for my winner, I've got the White Sox actually. Definitely not a winner in terms of 2023 and how the teams kind of played this season out, but I think when we just kind of stay within the confines of looking at the deadline, understanding the team's goals, what they want to do to like move themselves closer and closer into contention, whether that is laughably 2024, more likely 25, 26, 27, one of those three, in my opinion. But, I just kind of like went down the line, looking at the Angels trade first, giving up Giolito and Raylo. Both guys are walking at year's end. We weren't going to pay, the money to retain them. Given our situation, I don't think we should have anyways. And in return, we got Edgar Quero, top rated catcher. I think he becomes like the number 2 prospect in our system. They're talking, top 40, top 50 prospect in the game right now. That's amazing return for, a couple rental players. So good OBP skills, had a really, really nice season in Double A last year, had a, 300 average, 400 plus OBP, 17 home runs, 75 RBIs. Like that's something you can look forward to. I think he's stumbled a little bit this year, kind of working his way, in the higher minors. So, he's still 20 years old. He's got some time. Definitely needs to improve a little bit at catcher, but is serviceable from what I hear. So excited about him. Kai Bush is a lefty, second rounder, has a mid-3 ERA in Double A. Lefty, I think he got blown up yesterday in his minor league start with the White Sox, but in general, he's dealt with some injuries. So, 2 guys I think we get excited about as far as being depth pieces for our, minor system. We moved over to the other part of LA with the Dodgers, gave up Lance Lynn and Joe Kelly, who have honestly this year been complete bums for us. Joe Kelly, I don't think he's ever had, a very good string of performances for us. He's either been injured or very subpar. Lance Lynn obviously was like near Cy Young type, status, I think, when we acquired him, and then had, I think, a season or 2 with us that were, very good. But overall has had a terrible year. Good, K rate per 9, but that's pretty much it. Again, 2 rental guys. We bring back the number 9 overall prospect from the Dodgers, Nick Nastrini. An MLB ready arm, they say. He has some control issues, but, in general, just a guy, I think, who really fits well into our depth in our minors, and hopefully an arm that we can bring up sometime next year, or, maybe at the end of this year, who knows. Moving over to Kendall Graveman, give him up, get a first round, draft pick and a catcher in Corey Lee back. He's in AAA right now with a 280 batting average. Decent OBP. In general, they say that his catching ability is not very good. It's a little bit below average. So we're kind of looking at maybe a platoon guy, an offensive catcher that more or less has some pop, maybe off the bench or every other, game or so. But, I've heard some comps to like Zach Collins, which are not exactly what we want to hear as White Sox fans, but in the same sense, like we're building some catching depth here with him and Quero, a little bit of competition. Maybe, they both play well off each other. And I think Corey Lee actually batted behind Andrew Vaughn in college. So Vaughn had a lot of good things to say about him, which is, encouraging, because I generally trust Andrew Vaughn for some reason. I think he's got some great years ahead of him. He like reminds me a lot of Paul Konerko. So, hopefully he has half the career that Konerko did in that sense. But we talked about Berger and Eater. I'm excited about Eater just as far as like at his upside. He's dealt with a lot of injuries in the minors so far, but still young. Overall 2.6 ERA, 160 minor league innings. Like that's outstanding. Good, good K per 9 type of guy, lefty. Again, just builds into that arsenal in the minors. And finally gave up Keenan Middleton to the Yankees, another guy who's going to walk, and we bring back Juan Corella, who has 11 Ks per 9 right now and a mid-3s ERA in the high A league in the minors. So overall, looking at that package of prospects, they're saying the White Sox moved from the number 26 ranked system in the game all the way up to, they're talking 10 to 15 going into next year. Like, outstanding job in terms of doing the trade deadline right. That's where it ends when I talk about the White Sox as being a winner. And I'd love to dovetail this into a more expansive White Sox conversation if you'd like, Wayne. But again, we went through this experience 5 or so years ago when they went through the rebuild, the very, very long, painful rebuild. to get us to a playoff contention type team. And the sad thing is no matter how nice this all may transition out to be with what we have on the team right now and on the pro level, what, Colson Montgomery might be and all these new guys, there's a part of me that just fears yet again we won't spend at the right times, we won't drop the hammer, and we will drop the ball in some form or fashion if we keep the same ownership, executive team, development staff, scouting staff, whatever it is, together, coaches, etc. So I'm very cautiously, I don't even want to call it optimistic. I'm cautiously content with what is ahead for us as an organization. But how do you feel, Wayne?
Yeah. Well, in terms of like the hauls and such, like we got really big hauls, when you were talking about like, I don't even know how long ago it was. It felt like it's been an eternity, right? When we traded, Chris Sale, Quintana, right? We got Eloy, Kopech, like all these top prospects, right? But as you were saying, like it's our development. That's like the biggest thing. Our player development, how we manage the players being developed. Putting in the proper manager right in front of them to develop them, and coaching staff, et cetera, right? Getting some veterans, splurging on the right type of players, like Benintendi as our highest spent on free agent of all time. Like that's just ridiculous. So, these are the things that as White Sox fans we kind of go through. So to me, it's like great. This looks nice on paper. This is exactly kind of what we would like, but then, to your point, it all needs to be connected. We need to bring the right support staff to get all these prospects for them to grow. Similar to how we see, the Miami Marlins even, like last year, like they were whatever, and obviously they brought in a player like Luis Arraez, right? That kind of things I think is like where the White Sox need, where they have a young talent, let them develop, let them screw up. It's totally fine if they screw up. That's part of learning. Let them screw up and grow from there, and then bring in some solid veterans that kind of can embody what you're looking for in terms of like a franchise kind of player, right, to go forth on. So I feel like that's just where the White Sox struggle on. So definitely, again, on paper, this is great. I think, honestly, I think we kind of fleeced the Dodgers, albeit like the Dodgers are like in first place and they're going to be a perennial contender, so whatever, fleecing whatever it is to them. So, but at the same time, like I definitely like the haul that we got for a player of like a Lance Lynn's caliber there, as long as Joe Kelly, right? Like, players that aren't having the best seasons this year for some top prospects in an organization, right? So I can definitely appreciate things like that. Dylan Cease, I know there was some conversation about trading him, but, I think he still has a couple years of arbitration, if I'm not mistaken, and then can hit the free agency market in a couple years as an unrestricted free agent. So I guess I don't mind that. Maybe Han again. This player Cease was a player that was a Cy Young candidate last year. Isn't having the same success this season, so maybe he's just kind of waiting to sell him higher. I could definitely see that. And he felt like Lucas Giolito when we traded him. He was like, he's not going to reach that level he was, 3 years ago maybe. So I think that's where he felt comfortable pulling the trigger there. But yeah, Cease, I get it. Maybe he has another season in him that he can sell a little bit higher. Still, a fairly young talent. He's like 27 or something. So I get that. And, Eloy, whatever, that's totally fine. Keeping him. Anderson, I know there's been some talks there. Again, I think it's totally fine keeping them. But yes, everything resides with doing something with his front office. Something's got to change. And even it sounds like Rick Hahn kind of knows that. Like you hear him in like his press conferences. I don't know if you've listened to them, Pat, but it's kind of like asking, like, I don't know, a convicted felon. Like everybody knows he did it, right? And why can't he just admit it? Or that's just utter lie or BS, right? So I think that's where sometimes I feel like with Rick Hahn, seems like a nice guy, but man, the moves that's been made, like it just hasn't been contributing to success here for the White Sox.
Yeah, no, I do think, listening to his press conference, it's like, he's talking about his encouraged, feeling kind of going into this like what he wants to call kind of a retooling, a reshaping, like we could be competitive in 2024. It's like bullshit. And it's just funny to me because, like you're saying, kind of walking around the question, kind of dodging the accountability question, like what his job status is going to be going into next year. And, I don't think any reporters really asked him pointedly, like, do you feel like you failed as a general manager? Do you think you'll still have a job, going into next year? But it's this like complete job security that a lot of folks within the White Sox organization have. Like it is Kenny's security, it's Rick Hahn's, it's Daryl Boston as a first base coach. He was leading the base running and outfielding in last year's team, which both ranked dead last. So it's like, how did these guys keep their jobs? And we don't know what's going on in the development department. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes with baseball ops analysts. Like, are they family friends? Like, are they former players? Like, if they are, Reinsdorf's probably retaining them. So, it kind of reminds me of Congress in a lot of ways. It's like the White Sox organization, it's like no matter what new faces you kind of bring in to be a representative or a senator, like the system is broken, So it's like if a system is broken, overall, it doesn't matter who's actually sitting in those seats. It's like everything's aligned for kind of failure or, just pure inertia. And it's just like, I don't know, man, it's frustrating. Like I watch, some other teams change over owners in other leagues, and it's just like I could just kind of feel maybe this sense of like relief or, this obviously new optimism, energy. And it's like, I really do think that's what it's going to take. I mean, it's going to take Reinsdorf selling off, the White Sox and, maybe moving into a minority position or, maybe fully selling out. That'd probably be what I would think is his goal in all this, given how, much he's penny pinched along the, the years here. So, in any case, super frustrating when we look at big picture, but, looking at the deadline, when I just look at the X's and O's, I'm like, okay, White Sox, I'll give you, what I think is a winning, trade deadline performance.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, on paper, it's like, it makes sense. And maybe this is like, Rick Hahn's strength more so is getting these deals. Because honestly, like, whenever, as White Sox fans, we see these deals that even, Kenny Williams sometimes had, maybe not the Manny Ramirez signings or the Ken Griffey signs or trades or anything like that, but, definitely these kind of wheeling deals like during the trade deadline where we are like trading, Chris Sale for, Yoan Moncada and Kopech and all that, right? Like, those deals that I think we do kind of feel excited about from like the more so the fire sale standpoint and what we did with trading Quintana for Eloy Jimenez, like those types of deals we definitely get excited at. But the development of those players, managing, like we were pretty solid. It felt like when we didn't have Tony La Russa, right? I think we were kind of headed the right direction. That I guess for whatever feeling they felt like Rick Renteria just wasn't the guy there. So. And then ever since then, it's just been, comical thing happen after comical thing that's happened, injuries, right? So I don't know. I feel like this is the start of a kind of a little bit of a reset or maybe retool, hopefully. Just as a White Sox fan, it's like, yeah, it'd be nice if they can be, maybe in contention next season. A lot of crazy things can happen, but I think it's a step in the right direction, whatever that direction might be. We are getting some pretty quality young prospects. Lance Lynn and again with Joe Kelly, I think that was definitely a solid trade. I'm very excited about that one. So overall, I think, White Sox. It definitely feels like we won, but it definitely also feels like we didn't win at all, or we're still going to be reverting back to kind of our old ways here now.
Yeah. Before we move, the biggest surprise I think that I come out of it with, and like, as a White Sox fan coming to some sort of realizations with upside and like actual talent, like I found it strange that Moncada was not moved. I don't think there's much to be excited about anymore with him as a player. I think more than just raw ability, because obviously he can smoke balls that like we've seen missiles come off his bat. It's a consistency thing. I think it could perhaps be an attitude thing. Like I've been trying to get down to the bottom of like what part of the White Sox culture was so detrimental that it derailed our team from 21 to 22 and 22 to 23. And I think of some guys that just kind of show that attitude. And we talked about this in the past. Like why guys like Eloy Jimenez weren't packaged up into bigger deals. Like if there were actually serious deals on the table and we walked away from those, I'd be disappointed because at this point he only looks like a DH and he's injury riddled. Like unfortunately, it's a different thing every year, but it's like I don't mind how he actually performs when he's on the field, but it just hasn't been enough to be, a regular starter, especially a guy you're considering like a cornerstone of your franchise, and the way we kind of view him. And just finally Tim Anderson, we have one more year of control with Tim. It's pretty comfortable. Maybe the thought process is like let him have a bad year and see if he can bounce back before next year's trade deadline and get rid of him. But like again, we talk about this culture and like what's actually happening. We've seen Tim Anderson flick off fans in Cleveland. We've seen Tim kind of like be maybe a little bit excessive or kind of share an attitude when he hits a home run or whatever else. He does kind of carry some sort of attitude of loafing at times, like making the same type of error at shortstop on like a slow roll ground ball where he just has to make an easy throw to the catcher to, get a guy out at home. It's like it's these little things that kind of pile up and really get under the skin of veterans and other guys that are trying to like, put it all in and kind of push their way forward. So I'm picking on some guys, and I don't have enough evidence to really back up like my assumptions here. But like in the same sense, there's something going on within that locker room, and I can guarantee you it wasn't Jake Berger. So that's another part of this whole game that I think needs to be spotlighted yet again.